Hello, and welcome to Radiant Spirit. I'm Jennifer Gibbons, and this is a podcast about self love and living your most authentic life. So, today, on the note of living our most authentic life, and before getting too far into this, behind me, that was MC Yogi. That is Shedding Skin, Beloved Friend. And this track, I will play the in entirety at the end. Hopefully, I'll get the right one this time, right? You're listening last week. Um, but it seems super fitting because this week I would like to tell the story of shark bait. Anyone who knows me in real life knows that this is my ride or die homie, this little buddy. And there's a big reason behind why I am a grown ass woman going yeah, like I take this little buddy with me a lot of places. I travel with him, he's flown with me places. um if I'm going to spend time with my family, I absolutely take this little buddy with me wherever I can fit him. Really, he's so perfectly huggable and such a good friend of mine for some pretty crazy reasons. And to be perfectly honest, I thought there is no way in hell I am going to share this story on a public platform. Why would I do that? Leaving myself perfectly open to persecution, judgment, people just dismissing me completely, or thinking I need to be psychiatrically evaluated, whatever people's opinions are. But if I'm being authentically me and being my genuine self, Sharkbait is he is my homie, my ride or die, like I said. So his origin story, how this came to fruition. Like I would like to think I'm a perfectly normal grown woman, but you know what? What's normal? What the hell is normal? I'm probably not whatever normal might be, um, but yeah, I always had that impression of myself that I am a well-rounded and normal grown-up. So did seem kind of weird about six years ago, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, that I saw this little guy, this Finding Nemo plushie, in a free pile across the street from my apartment complex in a not great area, and really in front of an apartment that I knew to be a drug apartment, very much. Cops always there, always stuff not good happening across the way. But in any case, this little guy was sitting on top of a free pile one day while I was loading up my car, getting ready to head up into the mountains, into the hills to go probably take other loads up to my hubby. And I saw this guy. I just saw him sitting there. It is broad daylight. Kids are getting out of school. So there was a lot of foot traffic on my street. And every time I made a load down, I was like, I really want to grab that. I love the movie Finding Nemo, like unreasonably so for an adult. I love that movie. Finding Dory also, like big fan. We watch them often in our house, but I mean me and Sharkbait, we watch them and my other fleshy babies because the family is grown. But back then, none of that existed. It was just, I saw this guy. And really, my reasoning at the time was, well, first off, I just love Finding Nemo, and he would match my bedroom. So I thought, oh my God, he could swim in the sea of throw pillows on my bed and just look adorable there. So I finally, like my third, should I get it? No, I shouldn't. There's no reason for me to get it. I finally just sucked it up and said, yes, okay. And it was right before I was loaded up and I was getting ready to leave. I remember getting in my car and then second guessed it. And I jumped out, ran across the street, grabbed him, went upstairs, threw him in my apartment, and then went off and didn't really think much about it for a while. And probably a few months later, I made a decision with my little buddy Sharkbait that he was up for the adventure of the washing machine. So I got him nice and cleaned up. I probably did that pretty early on, I think. And yeah, so he got all nice and clean and shiny, and he was living on my bed for quite a while. I say quite a while. It was probably, I don't know, I feel like it probably 4 to 6 months that, he just kind of lived on my bed, and I'd give him little hugs and stuff. He was really, really huggable guy, super, super easy to do. So one evening, and I know it was really cold outside. I want to say it was March-ish in the year. So it was, or maybe April. It doesn't matter what time of year it was, but what does matter is that this time of year, my husband was gone. He was staying up at the cabin. So one particular night when I was just home by myself, I would usually fall to sleep. Let's be real, at this point, I would drink myself to sleep, usually by about 10 o'clock, a nice, reasonable hour. But this particular night, I just couldn't sleep. And it was already midnight, which for me to be up at midnight, and back then, this was when I was still drinking, and I would drink lots of wine throughout the day. And then I would, I mean, at this point, I was keeping it under control, where I was maintaining, for the sake of people around me, that I was drinking a healthy amount every day, whatever, like as if any of that is healthy, but um, whatever, I digress. So I was controlling my drinking a lot better than I had been in the past. But on nights when my husband was gone, not necessarily. That's when I didn't have to maintain myself for fear of being judged by my husband. I could just drink how I wanted to. So, yeah, this particular night, it seemed strange that I should have been able to just pass out by 10 o'clock. But here it was. After midnight, I could not sleep. So I was like, you know what? It's time to just go out to the living room, which is where I had my altar space, a bunch of candles lit up, and a place where I would just sit. It's where I would go and meditate. Yeah, it's my spot in front of my altar space in the living room. So I decided, you know what? Let's just light up my altar. Maybe I can calm down and do some meditating, and that will help me calm down and go to sleep. Sure, why not? So I go sit in front of my altar. I've got it all lit up. I realize I'm not, no, there's something about sitting here. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I brought shark bait from bed. And at this point, I was sleeping with him every night because he's just so freaking huggable. At that point, I wasn't sharing a room with my husband. So, it was lonely in our bed. So I had a little hug buddy while I was every night. So, yeah, he was perfect. So I took him out, to go meditate with me because he's so huggable. And for some reason, I just felt like, and it seemed like a prompt from him, not really from me, but it was like, lay down. You want to lay down. Okay, this is weird. But my coffee table is in the way, kind of a cramped living room. I remember just like forcibly just pushing my coffee table to the other side of the room. I was just like, move. And I laid like sprawled out with my arms and legs spread on the floor. And I had put him on my chest and just started breathing and kind of staring through my mostly closed eyes, but kind of staring down my nose. I could see my altar just lit up. So I was just kind of letting the candlelight take me away, and just kind of watching the flickering lights. And all of a sudden, it felt like this little guy started shaking. He was shaking. And I was like, am I going crazy? This is weird. And then he got warm. He was heating up and he was on my chest. And I pulled him up and I was like, are you okay, little buddy? Like, and in Marlon from the movie's voice, I swear to God, it sounded like Marlon, not Nemo, Marlon said, we've got to go. You've got to go now, run across the street, make a lot of noise. You've got to make as much noise as possible. In that frantic Marlon fish voice, that is like when he's frantically searching for his son. It was that voice telling me, go across the street now. Now, it is cold. It is after midnight. I am alone in a not great neighborhood. And I'm in like a see-through t-shirt and like baggy pajama pants, barefoot. And this fish is saying, you got to run across the street to the not safe place across the street and make as much noise as possible right now. You're almost out of time. And that was what he was saying to me. And it was frantic, hurry up, go, go, go. And I remember thinking, can I grab my slippers? And he said, no, there's no time. So I ran across the street barefoot. I remember the next day going like, oh my God, I just got a pedicure and it was all scratched up, my feet all bleeding. But I wasn't feeling it at the time. I was just bolting across the street, banging on these doors that are not people that I would ever want to associate with. Not that I know these people, but I had seen enough activity throughout my several years of living there that I didn't mess with these people, aside from stealing their fish out of the free pile. So yeah, I was holding this fish and just pounding on these doors and these apartments across the street. They were townhouses, actually. And yeah, I remember I banged on the first door. didn't feel right. I banged on the second door and I was like, oh, something's going on there. And then there were four, a row of four of them. And when I got to the third one, I felt him say, no, no, too far, go back. And I was like, okay. So I'm just standing in this parking lot crying. And I'm like, I know what you're doing. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. And at this point, he had already told me the little girl's in trouble. The little girl. There was a little girl, and I could kind of see her in my mind's eye. I want to say about 4 or 5 years old, brown hair. Um, yeah, I mean, other than that, I know sounds pretty nondescriptive. I honestly had not seen any children over there at that point, but uh, yeah, that's trying to remember exactly how that all went down, but the message was clear, just go make a lot of noise. And I banged on that second door again, knowing that's the door. I could hear things going on behind the door. And this man opened it and said something about like, what are you doing, you crazy bitch? Something like that, or told me to fuck off or something like that, and slammed the door in my face. And I was just like, something's wrong. Oh my God, I know something's wrong. I probably looked like a fucking lunatic. Like, it is after midnight, some crazy chick barefoot in her pajamas holding a stuffed fish, being very accusatory to people I have never met before. So yeah, that was a crazy night. And I realized I was still drinking at the point. So at that point in my life. So maybe my memory is a little bit foggy of what I did or what I said. I just know that he was telling me, make a lot of noise. You've got to go make a distraction. And I sure as hell did. Um, coming back that night, and I knew there was a little girl in trouble. I just knew it. And I had no way of being able to relay to anyone who could help that I knew there was a little girl in trouble. So I ended up going back to my apartment. I certainly could not get back to sleep after that. That wasn't happening, but I called the police. I called the cops, I want to say 2 times that night. And then I waited till the next morning and called again, simply to do a child welfare check across the street. Trying my best uh, to relay to law enforcement why I felt like this little girl needed to be checked on across the street. Of course, I was written off as crazy. I was watching intently, and at no point, which was rare because as often as police were over there on a regular basis for my call, absolutely not. It was ignored. And really, after those few times, and of course, I shared this with my husband. He said, "You have got to stop calling the police. They do not care at this point. If they're coming to question your sanity. So just leave it alone. There's nothing you can do. You've got to just accept it." Um, and so reluctantly, I did. Wow. And just telling that right now, I can see where there are so many layers to my relationship with and how I feel towards our systems and law enforcement and all of that. But yeah, I digress. I'm not going to go into that right now. It's not what this is about. So, shark bait. We made our distraction. And for what it's worth, that night, well, there was very much a party going on across the way when that happened. It seemed really strange. It was like a Tuesday night. And there was definitely a shady gathering happening at that apartment. So, but again, the man slammed the door in my face pretty quickly. All I could see was just a few people sitting on a couch. I couldn't really tell anything about the apartment. So, or who was there. I don't know. I, I felt like maybe I was crazy, but at the same time, I knew in my fucking heart that we did the right thing. For what it's worth, and as crazy as it sounds, we did the right thing that night. So a few days pass, and needless to say, after this night, Sharkbait always slept in my arms. I fell asleep with him, like holding him tightly. I don't think I let go of him during the day. I mean, I did to do basic things, but I took him out in the living room with me. This is when he started just whatever room I was in the house, I'd bring him with me. That's when that started. So if anybody's like, I don't do that all the time now, but he definitely has his own chair in my living room. He's, like I said, my ride or die buddy. So over the next 10 days, there were 3 other incidents that happened, all of them taking place between 12:30 and 2 a.m. And like I said, I normally would go to bed around 10, but so, normal sleep patterns come into play now, and I'm just taking him to bed. Now, a couple of nights after the first incident, I believe it was 12:39 on the clock, if I remember correctly. I don't know why that just keeps standing out in my mind as somehow significant. I doubt it's significant, but I remember on the clock when this little buddy warmed up and started vibrating in my bed. And I was like, oh shit, what's going on? And I grabbed him, and I had already been warned by my husband, don't you dare go over to those neighbors' house. Don't you dare. And I knew, don't, I'm not allowed to do that. So I just held him as tight as I could. And this is when I could see the little girl. I can see her. I can see her clearly. I can still see her when I talk about it, but mostly it's the outline of her, but I see a bubble around her. So he starts buzzing, vibrating, and heating up. So I just clutch him to my chest, I'm in bed, I'm closing my eyes, but in my third eye, I see a man coming upstairs, and he has just made a corner. Like there's a few stairs going, like 3 stairs, and then the stairway turns and he's going up, and he's coming up to the top. And I can see the little girl in her bed, and I can see the layout of this entire townhouse. I've never been in these townhouses. I can see the staircase. I can tell her bedroom is the first bedroom on the left at the top of the stairs. There's a bathroom in between, and her mom is sleeping down the hall. And this man is coming up from downstairs. The lights are all off in this apartment. He's creeping up the stairs, and he gets almost to the top stair, and he trips and he falls and he curses. And the mom down the hall says, "Are you okay?" Something like that. And you can hear him grumble, grumble. He's a tall, thin man. I believe that was like the man that answered the door a few nights earlier. It was a tall, thin man. Um, Very much meth addict vibes and looks about him, but whatever. That's neither here nor there, whatever. But yeah, that night, and I could see her in her bedroom. She was awake. She knew this man is coming for her. She knew this was not a first instance. This was absolutely not a first instance. Oh my God, it breaks my heart to think about. Okay, collect myself from that. It's an old story. She's okay. She's okay. All right. So, yes, I can see that little girl, and what I could see is a hot pink bubble around her with gold at the top, and then across the bottom is gold. And I believe the bottom was like the bed, the platform she was laying on, the bed she's laying on. And then there's like a hot pink dome around her. And I could just visualize. And the more I focused on her, that bubble could get stronger and brighter. So I was just like keeping her in this little protective hot pink bubble as hard as I could, and just focusing on that bubble with all of my might. And I believe it was probably close to 3 in the morning when I finally let go. And I was just, my sheets were wet. I was sobbing. I was shaking. I was sweating. It took every ounce of my being to just hold her in that bubble. Although I feel like once the mom down the hall heard him fall, she was probably safe for the night, but I was freaking out. I did not know how else to handle it. All I knew is I could keep her in that little protective bubble. And it was just, I was terrified to break that bubble, whatever that was. I still don't know what that is. I don't know. But I do believe that we had some part in causing a distraction and saving her that night. And then a couple more times. So fast forward, I want to say about 3 or 4 more days. It was getting to where, oh, that was just a one-time thing. And it would get to be where, like, I kind of forgot. Not that you really forget. I was still staring down this man across the street. I knew what vehicle he drove, and I was visualizing taking him back to his vehicle, doing something. But like, what? Thank goodness my husband was very rational. No, just stay here. He really helped me remain sort of sane while I thought I was losing my freaking mind. And also really grateful to have a therapist who was also a medium at the time that really helped me navigate all of this. Because without that, I probably would have had myself admitted. But so after that instance, so man falls at the top of the stairs, and I could see that the little girl's bedroom door was just cracked. It wasn't shut, but it was kind of shut, but you could just push it open. In any case, Fast forward a few more nights. I feel like this was a Sunday night. It was like the first incident happened on a Tuesday. The next, I want to say, was a Friday. Maybe it was Thursday. And then to the Sunday. I don't know if any of this matters. I'm just trying to remember what the how the events laid out. But um, yeah, and like I said, it doesn't really matter. But a few nights down the road, again, in between that 12:30 and 2 a.m. window, I don't remember what time it was this time, but shark bait got warm and buzzing again. So I was like, oh shit, again. And I grabbed him immediately this time, because this time I knew it didn't take me a little bit to kind of gather my thoughts and figure out, well, what do I do with this? Now I'm like, oh, I know. I put her in that bubble. And so I grabbed him super tight to my chest. I visualized that bubble, and it was the same, but when each time when I did that with more intent, the bubble got brighter and stronger. So this time though, I put her in that bubble, and I could see the whole downstairs of the apartment where the kitchen was. I could see this man. I could see his hands, almost as if I was in his body. I could see what he was doing, and he was getting a glass of water out of the tap in the kitchen with all of the lights off. I could see the street lights, the way they come into that kitchen from there. Um, and this is so funny, a funny observation, not that this is a funny situation, but my first thought, outside of like what I wanted to do to this man, my first thought was like, oh gross, you're drinking out of the tap water. I'm a bit of a water snob, so it does make me laugh that I realize that that was my first reaction, like, oh, that's disgusting. This man is doing far more disgusting things than drinking tap water, let's be real. um, so in any case, I remember thinking at that moment, I want to murder this man. I want to hurt him so bad. Like, what can I do? Um, and I'm just like freaking out while trying to hold her upstairs in this bubble as strong as I can. And I remember thinking with my mind, I wanted to punch him in the face. And right as I had that thought, the water glass drops and shatters. And then mom upstairs, are you okay? That definitely woke her up. And that was the distraction for the night. Again, I held on to him as long as I could and held her in that bubble, probably till about 3 in the morning, until I finally could just fall asleep. Um, and yeah, that was intense. But that time I felt like I knew what to do. And the satisfaction that came with him dropping that glass of water, I was like, yeah, yeah. I wanted to, I really wanted to hurt that man. And that is not a normal thought pattern for me, to want to cause people harm. But in that moment, oh man, yeah, I really wanted to cause harm to that man. But I believe, um, and I don't know how that works. If I had any effect in that, or if it was just the universe, spirit, God, whatever energy ties that this little guy has to the little girl, um, causing that distraction to happen. But again, all I can do is pray for that little girl. Several days go by now. I want to say at this point, it was again coming up on the weekend. So it was like a good 5 day break in between, since the water glass incident. And again, he started getting warm and buzzing. This time he was getting he wasn't as warm, and he didn't seem to vibrate as strong. It seemed like the connection was starting to fade, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know, but um, yeah, I don't understand how any of that works, but just learning how to tune in and just trust my instincts, and go with it. So, like I said, next weekend, this little guy starts to buzz, and I do it again. Like, okay, here we go. And at this point, I'm getting really pissed off at this guy across the street. I'm mean mugging his truck every day, just like, yeah, I was sending all the evil eye vibes that guy's way, but I don't know if it had any good. I mean, hopefully it did something. But the third time that this guy started buzzing, I guess it would be the fourth time if we can count the first night. But in bed, just he wakes me up from being warm and buzzing. At this point, I see the man at the same point where he's making the turn up the stairs. So he's probably got 8 to 10 stairs to go up before reaching the top landing. And this point, actually, no, the last time he was already halfway up. He was really close to the top of the stairs. And I'm panicking, like, oh my God, you got to stop her. He's going in. He's going in. I can see him pushing open the bedroom door, and I'm freaking out, but just keeping her in that bubble as tight as I can. I'm sure I am shaking, crying, just, um, yeah, because that's what it felt like, I'm sure. And I remember like kind of being out of body during these times, but my sheets and my pillowcase would be sopping wet afterwards. So tears, sweat, probably both. But that last time that this happened, he was pushing open the bedroom door, and he pushed it open and it bounced back, and it bounced back quicker than it would seem possible for how hard he was pushing. But there was something behind the door, and the doorknob came and clipped him in the nuts, and he went, oh, and doubled over. And again, mom down the hall, are you okay? And grumble, grumble, whatever he said. But his plans were thwarted yet again that night. But that little girl was awake. She knew he was coming, and I could feel her, and I could keep her in that bubble. And again, I can still see the bubble. Um, yeah, it was gold on the bottom where she lay, and then a hot pink dome around it. But the hot pink became like there was a gold light at the top of the dome. And after that, when I would start to send prayers for my friends, mostly my friends in my AA meetings, when they would ask for prayer requests, I began starting to see different colors of bubbles that I could visualize them in when I was sending them prayers, which is just kind of interesting. But that was my first experience with that, is the little girl across the street and shark bait. And wouldn't you know, by the end of that weekend, I feel like that last experience happened on a Friday or Saturday. And by the Monday, that black Toyota Tacoma with the gun stickers all over the back was gone, and I never saw it again. So hopefully, mom caught on to the fact that this man was hurting her daughter and got him the hell out of there. I can only hope. Law enforcement certainly wasn't going to do anything to help. So, um, yeah, I say yeah a lot. I realize. I don't. Yeah, that was Sharkbait's origin story, and so I feel like it goes without saying that no kidding, this guy is my ride or die. This is my homie for life, and he's so perfectly huggable. And yeah, since then, working with my therapist and understanding that these messages that come through, these I used to call them spiritual downloads. I am now more comfortable calling them psychic downloads. I think in the beginning I was very much afraid of my power and afraid to claim that I had any psychic ability, for probably fear of prosecution, or my family just thinking I'm nuts and dismissing me completely. Very much a fear I had there of just being misunderstood by the people I love. So I've kept that story very limited. There's not many people that know it, but now here I am sharing it with everyone. So um, on that note, I feel like it would be really crazy if I was the only person having these experiences. And well, I'm not really sure where Radiant Spirit is going to evolve as a podcast, going from just being, not just, I don't want to dismiss it, but from going from being guided meditations and open discussion about loving ourselves and the world more, to sharing this crazy story about my little homie and his origin story, his psychic abilities, my own psychic abilities. But you know what? That is just me being as authentic as I possibly can and not holding back. So yeah, that was actually kind of terrifying. So, but I am really curious to hear other people's stories about I don't know, anything interesting, things that maybe you would be afraid to share this with, or I don't know what sort of transformations people are going through, because this was certainly a big part of my transformation. And it's that psychic connection and tuning into those gifts that has really been a big key for me. And remembering that going back to drinking is just not an option for me. It's a horrible option, and it's not something that even appeals to me, because that psychic connection is is so beautiful and exciting. It's far more exciting than opening a bottle of wine. So Uh, yeah. So that wow, that was a special part of my heart and really fun to share. Uh, and I'm really excited to see what this brings for the next episode. Like I said, I had no idea that this is going to be something that I wanted to share ever, let alone on a podcast. But what the hell? Why not? Let's see where this evolves. Let's see where it goes, where it grows. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of sitting to think if there's anything else I forgot to share about this, but I really don't think there is. If you want to see some pictures of this little guy, I think my profile picture on the website is me and Sharkbait in my Christmas onesie at my parents' house at Christmas time. So you can see a picture of us hanging out at my family's house. And I will actually make a point to put more pictures of Sharkbait and all of his homies because now there is a whole menagerie of plushy babies that are just our little plushy family. They're awesome. So yeah, check out the website, and that's also where you can get the previous recordings of those guided meditations I refer to, how Radiant Spirit began. The website is embracelove.life. There will be links to the website on both Spotify and YouTube. So go ahead and check that out if you can. And, or, I mean, if you can, whatever. If you're interested, check it out. If you're not, don't. And I am going to take us out with more MC Yogi. This is Shedding Skin. Beloved Friend is the title of this jam. And I just thought, of course, like, perfect, perfect, because this is my beloved friend and he always will be, even though he began as somebody else's beloved friend. And I'd like to think that connection is what helped us work as a team to put that little girl in a protective shield and really learn for the first time how to utilize that protection bubble power, whatever that is. But it felt pretty special, pretty magical. And thank you for listening to this story and giving me a space to share that story. Yeah, that is rad. And I hope you guys tune in again next week. Here is MC Yogi taking us out.